Hi, I'm Erin. I'm a student at James Madison University. In this video, we are going to be discussing the topic of the Chinese Genocide. A few events fall under this Chinese Genocide, mainly the Great Leap Forward and the Great Famine, which was a result of the Great Leap Forward. To start, a few questions we need to ask about the Chinese Genocide are, do you know what the Chinese Genocide is? And if you know about it, do you even think it's a genocide? This video will go into the exploration of the topic of the Chinese Genocide and why it matters. First, what is the Chinese Genocide? The Chinese Genocide is included in leader of the People's Republic of China, Mao Zedong's plan to reconstruct China's economy. Mao sought to transform China into a pro-China state to transform their economy, similar to Hitler's transformation of Germany into Nazi Germany and recovery from World War I debts. According to the Nazi Empire, written by Christopher R. Browning, longing for economic recovery and prosperity, the restoration of great power status and national pride, the end of political gridlock, Germans provided the National Socialists with a degree of broad cross-class support unattainable by any other party. China's economy was predominantly agricultural-based, and Mao thought that the only way to become a world power was to be dominant in steel production. One of Mao's comments on a report from the Central Military Commission was, quote, "If steel output can reach 60 million tons by 1962, we can overtake the United States without much difficulty," end quote. That is an example of Mao's determination for all of China to get steel production on the road. This push towards production during Mao's Great Leap Forward caused a lack of focus on care towards the Chinese people, and that is what caused the Great Famine. Food availability became so limited in China that, according to historian Cormac O'Grada in his review essay, Great Leap into Famine, 45 million lives were taken in the span of 4 years. Trying to understand this is similar to trying to understand the genocidal massacres that took place in the United States. In regards to the lives of Indians and their wealth, the text Indians of the United States in the 19th century says, quote, "If Indian and white interests conflicted, the Indian was sacrificed," end quote. The natives, like the population of China, they were sacrificed for the economic gains of the dominant nation. 50 years later, survivors interviewed about the Great Famine for the book Forgotten Voices of Mao's Great Famine by historical author Zhu Shun said that the intense feelings of hunger haunts them the most. This can be compared to the film Night and Fog, that shows victims of the Holocaust suffering from starvation, such as in the screenshot from the film. In both situations, many people suffering from starvation did not survive due to the great toll starvation takes on the body and to even begin the recovery period after the Holocaust or after the Great Famine. Now that we know about the Great Leap Forward and about the Great Famine, we can discuss them in the context of genocide. A few questions we have discussed in our Representing Genocide via Film class are, what makes an event a genocide? How many people does it take to make a genocide? If we look at the numbers and the method of annihilation in the Chinese genocide, we can ask the question, do the events of the Great Leap Forward constitute a genocide? Let's compare China's numbers to other genocides. If looking at the Holocaust during World War II, approximately 6 million people died over the course of 4 years. If we divide the number of people who perished by the approximate number of days the Holocaust lasted, 1,460 days, we can get an idea that around 4,100 people died a day during the Holocaust. If we look at the Rwandan genocide, which lasted 100 days, and then approximate 800,000 people died, on average, 8,000 people died a day. If we look at the Armenian genocide and follow the same formula, 578 people died a day. If we bring up China from 1958 to 1962, Mao's Great Leap Forward, 45 million people perished in 4 years. That is 30,800 people a day. This number is greater than the Holocaust, Rwanda, and Armenia combined. So if based off numbers, the events of the Great Leap Forward would constitute a genocide. So why is there so little discussion about it? This may be because of the definitions of genocide. In the text, The History and Sociology of Genocide, Analyses and Case Studies, Authors Frank Chalk and Kurt Jonassohn discuss many definitions of genocide. One of the most famous is the United Nations General Assembly's definition. The UN General Assembly defines genocide as the denial of rights of an entire group as homicide does, and in denying the victim's life, punishment is of international concern. But even with this definition in place, in an average of 30,800 people dying a day, there was no international intervention in China. This is similar to the genocide in Rwanda. According to author Gerald Kaplan of the 1994 extermination of the Tutsi of Rwanda, quote, "The attack against the country's Tutsi minority unambiguously fulfilled the definition of genocide as set down in the UN 1948 Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide." End quote. In both time periods of the Rwandan genocide and China's Great Leap Forward, the UN had this existing definition, but there was still no intervention, even though there was evidence and good reason to intervene. The Great Leap Forward denied 45 million people their rights to human life due to starvation, falling under the UN General Assembly's basic definition of genocide. But there was no set entire group to be eliminated. Also, when looking at Article 2 of this definition, Article 2 includes intent to destroy. While Mao's plan was very ambitious, he had not foreseen or planned any deaths to this extent due to his plans. So the Chinese genocide did not follow under the entire definition constituted by the UN. Other genocide scholars and historians have brought it upon themselves to create their own definitions of genocide for scholarly purposes. Another definition mentioned in the History and Sociology of Genocide is the definition created by Vahakin Dadrian, which includes latent genocide. Quote, "Latent genocide, in which the perpetrator's activities have unintended consequences." End quote. Under this definition of genocide, China from 1958 to 1962 is considered a genocide because of the Great Famine. That was an unintended consequence of the Great Leap Forward created by Mao's government. According to Melanie O'Brien, who wrote Classifying Cultural and Physical Destruction, Are Modern Historical and Current Human Rights Violations in China Violations of International Criminal Law? And reference to the Great Leap Forward, quote, "While some victims were part of the military, they were not targeted as part of an armed conflict, but attacked in the same manner as non-military civilians. Thus, it is evident that the crimes committed against persons were widespread, systematic, and against the civilian population, and therefore incontestably amount to crimes against humanity. In simpler terms, because the non-military civilian population was targeted by Mao's Great Leap Forward and suffered major population losses, China was a victim of crimes against humanity. Though this is the claim that has been made against China, there is still a huge culture of denial that 45 million people died at the hands of Mao's plan for an economic conquest. This is similar to the culture surrounding the Armenian genocide. The film Ararat, directed by Adam Egoyan, focuses on this culture of denial and the lack of education there is on the Armenian genocide. One of my favorite quotes from the film that is quite expressive of the culture of denial is, quote, "There is nothing here to prove that anything ever happened," end quote. The Turkish government, according to author Dikran M. Kaligian, quote, "began funding professors in academic publications and establishing Turkish studies institutes at U.S. universities to try to sow doubt despite the voluminous historical records and the consensus among Holocaust and genocide scholars. This is similar to China in their construction of their education system, completely wiping out the Great Famine from history and idolizing Mao in government buildings." Overall, the Great Leap Forward and the Great Famine resulted in 45 million deaths. Whether China chooses to acknowledge that and work towards educating their people on it is out of our individual control. But what we can do is educate ourselves on genocides and work towards preventing future ones by telling others. Thank you for watching.